everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeff and I've got a little teeny tiny book haul for you today. Now I know a lot of my friends here on BookTube, fellow YouTubers, BookTubers, do massive hauls with lots and lots of books. So all I've got today for you are 5. Like I've mentioned before on this channel, if anyone's been following along, that I live in Osaka, Japan, and vintage books especially are hard to find. I occasionally get lucky, but usually I have to buy newer books or have them shipped to me through Amazon or other online sources. So one of these books that I'm going to show off today, I've already kind of mentioned briefly in a previous video, and that's this one, Volume 2 of Louis L'Amour's collected short stories, the collected short stories of Louis L'Amour. I had previously owned in my collection Volumes 1, 3, and 4. Over here, see the little gap where I took this one out. And again, you got a nice photo of Mr. L'Amour on the back there, looking like he's ready to go trekking in the Alaska wilderness. But these are beautiful hardbound editions from Bantam, and they have lots and lots of stories in them. And this includes all of his stories about Chick Beaudry, the Texas Ranger. And I read one of those from a second collection that came out of paperback. I have Beaudry here, but Beaudry's Law has some additional stories, and that's one of these that I read, and that is Rain on the Mountain Fork, which was really cool. The Beaudry stories are kind of mystery westerns, where this one, there's a rainy, stormy night, and some people are hanging out in this shelter while worried about the mountain falling down on them. You got a landslide, and the stagecoach passengers are waiting here, and in comes Beaudry out of the rain, and he knows one of the people in that cabin is a murderer, and what happens after that. Pretty cool story. And I also read Horse Heaven. Again, these are for June on the Range, and that's kind of why I picked this up. Horse Heaven was another good story, and I'll talk about it later in a June on the Range kind of short story, short westerns roundup that I'll be planning to do here in a little while. We're running out of time. It's almost the end of June, so I got to get on the stick about that one. But love these collections. There were a total of 7 of them. I talked about these in a previous video when I was talking about the various collected stories editions. I do plan to get numbers 5, 6, and 7 real soon, hopefully later this summer. Now, I've been ordering every month or so. I'm trying to order at least one kind of comic book edition, whether it's kind of a trade paperback like a Marvel Epic Collection or a DC Finest or something like that, and or maybe a DC Compact Comics edition. This time around, I finally pulled the trigger on from, I believe, Dark Horse, B.P.R.D. Volume 1. Now, fans of Hellboy will be familiar with the B.P.R.D., which stands for the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. And of course, that means there's a whole bunch of members with special abilities like Abe Sapien, the Fishman, and Liz. What is Liz's last name? Liz, who's got the Firestarter abilities. Hellboy himself, of course. There's a whole line of comics, not just featuring Hellboy with occasional guest stars from the B.P.R.D., but also a line called Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. But this line, B.P.R.D., is sans Hellboy, no Hellboy whatsoever in these, although maybe he is mentioned in passing. Anyway, this omnibus is about 400 pages of very cool art and stories, and there are multiple of these, so I don't know if I'm going to be picking up any more, but we got some very cool Mike Mignola flavored artwork there. Some of the first story in this collection is written by Mignola. It's called Hollow Earth, and really cool, very Mignola-esque art, but he didn't do the art in this. The art in this one, pencils by Ryan Sook, and inks by Ryan Sook and Curtis P. Arnold. And, we have some really nice looking art in here, and I'm sure the stories will be really cool. Well, I shouldn't say Hellboy doesn't appear, because there he is right there. There's Mr. Hellboy. But I don't think he's by any stretch the main focus. I think mostly Abe Sapien, the gentlemanly underwater fishman adventurer, Abe Sapien will be front and center. As we go on, you'll see there's a lot of other artists and writers involved here, right? In this book. It's not all Mike Mignola by any stretch. We have Guy Davis, Christopher Golden, probably a writer. He's written some Hellboy short stories. I know I got somewhere around here I have a Hellboy anthology of short stories based off the character. Prose stories, not comics. We got Tom Snigoski, Jeff Johns, Scott Collins with the K, Cameron Stewart, Michael Avon Oeming, that's an interesting name, and others. So what this book collects, and you got the little frog there to show Plague of Frogs. And I guess these are the giant frog men that'll come next. I know there's some shorter stories mixed in with really long multiple issue stories. So this appears to have Hollow Earth, looks like 70-page run. Then we have Hollow Earth Dark Horse Extra, a few pages of that. Abe Sapien versus Science, which is a little short. Drums of the Dead, which looks like maybe one comic length issue. The Soul of Venice, Dark Waters, Night Train, There's Something Under My Bed, Another Day at the Office, and then finally we get a long one, about 130-page long run. Maybe that's what, 6 issues or so or more. Plague of Frogs. So there's the table of contents. And at the end it finishes with the sketchbook. So if we go back into Plague of Frogs, we have some very decidedly different art. Not all Mike Mignola style at all. And that's what's kind of cool. We get a whole variety of artwork from, different people doing their take on kind of the Hellboy universe. Some very impressive page layouts and things. And then the sketchbook at the end has some various sketches and some, cool stuff and a little bit of text to go along with it from different artists, maybe talking about how they, approached adapting Hellboy stuff to their style. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to getting into this. It's nice and heavy, but being a trade paperback, it's easy to handle. Very cool. Okay, I've gotten a few, over the last several months, I've picked up a few of the Galance science fiction Masterworks editions, and my most recent acquisition is this, the Best of Roger Zelazny, with kind of a not so interesting cover, but I do like the colors, and I do like the yellow, the yellow spine and the SF Masterworks logo on the side, etc. And down below here we have, whoa, there's some weird kind of plastic on it that's coming off. What the hell is that? What is going on with that? That's weird. You see that? There's like a little plastic coating coming off. Is that a protective? It's weird. I'm going to have to clip that off, I guess. Anyway, that's annoying. But otherwise, it came in good shape. It took about 3.5 weeks to get here to me from England. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, which of course I have over here, calls Zelazny a superbly intelligent writer. And that's very true. So that Zelazny has always had one of the most inventive imaginations in the genre, Kirkus Reviews. Paragon of the storytelling art, Robert Silverberg. Zelazny's authority never falters, and nor does the charisma of his voice, Locus. So we have the typical Galance science fiction kind of little blurb about him, some author bio, some testimonials, and just a little bit of, talking about his collection. So this collects some really cool stories, one of which is one of my favorite science fiction stories, The Doors of His Face, The Lamps of His Mouth, which Brayden at Dad Like Books talked about recently in one of his short story kind of showdowns that he does on Saturdays. But this has not so many stories, but it does have the novella, Damnation Alley, which is really cool. I've seen the movie, which is not great, but the story is supposed to be pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to reading the original version. So this starts off with The Rose for Ecclesiastes, which is a really famous, much anthologized short story, but I've never read it. I guess it's more of a novelette. Corrida, and which is quite short. Damnation Alley, which is not quite 100 pages, maybe 90 some pages in this edition. So a novella for sure. Then we have Divine Madness, For a Breath I Tarry, He Who Shapes, Home is the Hangman, Loki 7281. Never heard of that one. Permafrost, which I have heard of a lot. And again, The Doors of His Face, The Lamps of His Mouth, which is a really fantastic story. Highly recommend that one. The Great Slow Kings, The Keys to December, and The Last Defender of Camelot. And most of those are in the 20 to 40 page range, with the exception of the Damnation Alley novella. So nice collection there. Slowly adding a few of these because they're pretty affordable in trade paperback, and I can usually find them on Amazon Japan pretty easily. So I'm slowly getting a few of these in every month or two. Okay, the last two books, I went to Kinokuniya, the big bookstore chain. There's a big one in Umeda near Hankyu Station in Umeda that I showed off in a previous video when I did kind of a bookstore tour around Osaka. I went to the Colombo Corner Shop used bookstore, and then I also spent a little time showing you inside of a Kinokuniya, a typical Japanese new bookstore. And I found a couple things. One of them is, I have several Moomin Troll books, but I don't have all of them. So I picked up one I didn't have, Moominvalley in November by Tove Jansson. Tove, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure I could be very well. I believe she's Finnish writer. In Moominvalley in November, Snufkin, Philly Jonk, the Hemulin, Grandpa Grumble, and Little Toft have all come to the Moomin's house for a visit during a gloomy November. But where are the Moomins? And there we have Snufkin with his little pipe. Anyway, Tove Jansson did her own, art, little line drawings, illustrations in the book, and they're always very evocative and interesting. And these books are very strange. Yes, they're meant for children, but a lot of adults enjoy them. And they're strange and moody and very Northern European in kind of mindset or sensibility. But I like the series. It's interesting. A masterpiece, says Neil Gaiman. Now, I don't know if having Neil Gaiman's testimonial on a book carries much weight anymore. He's almost like the Stephen King of fantasy as far as how ubiquitous his kind of blurbs were on a lot of covers of books. Of course, not anymore, but that's the way that goes. Anyway, that should be fun. I'm planning to read some more Moomin Troll books one of these days. They're fun, and they're not too tiny. They're not overly kiddie, right? This one is a good 181 pages or so. Now, the one that I'm most psyched about, this new series it's not new. Their books are good 75 plus years old, but I had read about these. This is a mystery series from a famous Japanese Golden Age, verging on Silver Age era. Very famous, perhaps the most famous classic mystery detective thriller writer in Japanese culture, and that's Seishi Yokomizo. And I have his very famous mystery, the Inugami Curse, with one of the dead bodies that is found in a frozen lake upside down. Pretty interesting visual. Now, I first encountered this story and this author. I saw there's been several movie and TV adaptations of this series of books starring Detective Kindaichi. I believe his name is Kosuke Kindaichi. We have a nice character list right here. Now, these books were unavailable for decades for, non-Japanese readers, as far as I'm aware. And they, the people who were fans of like Impossible Crime or Locked Room murder mysteries long wanted to read these. I think the genre is called honkaku. Maybe it's kind of a traditional Japanese mystery, thriller, detective fiction genre in Japan. And like I said, Seishi Yokomizo is a very famous proponent of it. He was born in 1902 and passed away in 1981. And I think his first novel featuring Kosuke Kindaichi, Detective Kindaichi, came out in 1946. And that one's called The Honjin Murders. And that also has been adapted into English, and I will pick that one up very shortly. And the last book was published in 1978, shortly before his death. And he wrote, I believe, 77 stories completely about this detective. 26 novels, and the other 51 are novellas or short stories. And they're very cool, very dark, very unusual, sometimes tragic elements woven into these tales. A lot of unpleasant people doing unpleasant things, while the very lovable main detective, kind of a pre-Columbo, kind of Columbo-ish sort of detective, Kindaichi. He's, I guess, in his 30s or 40s. He's kind of schlubby, or not. He's not fat exactly, but he's not fit. He's kind of small man, and he's kind of dresses in kind of rough clothing and isn't particularly dapper. He's got a big pile of hair. Then when he's thinking, he's scratching his hair a lot, which sometimes surprises and disturbs the people around him. It's kind of part of his thinking process. He's got, exercising his little gray cells like Poirot. He's a really fun character, and it's good to have a character like that around here, because the people in this novel are not nice at all, for the most part. But as it says here, a classic Japanese murder mystery from the author of the Honjin Murders. Now, like I said, there were a lot of these stories, and it was only in the last 6-7 years that this British publisher called Pushkin Vertigo started putting these out. And you'll see the logo there, Pushkin Vertigo, putting out nice trade paperback editions. These are the only editions that have been out in English translations ever from these books, as far as I'm aware. And there's several others. I've ordered 4 more. There's 2 more in the bookstore that I can get, go and pick up live, which I'll do this coming weekend. So I'll have a good 7 to work through. Kindaichi is a private investigator. He is a PI. He's not just amateur. He is paid for his investigating services. And this one, he's retained by a law firm to investigate this series of mysterious murders and events in this kind of mountainside lake village area. And so he is a PI, and he does technically like a Sherlock Holmes. He's more like a Sherlock Holmes, I guess, where he's the brilliant cerebral detective rather than the two-fisted fedora-wearing, trench coat-wearing, fighting bad guys in a punch-up or shootout sort of private detective that we might think of when we think of private detective fiction. But he does qualify as a private detective, so he will qualify for PI in July. Jim at Mystery and Mayhem's great newish, started last year, BookTube event, and I will do I'm planning to do a video on this character and this author for that event next month. But suffice it to say, I devoured this last weekend. I read the whole thing. It's not super long, it's about 320 pages or 15 pages or so, but it was just so gripping and so interesting, and the translation was really well done. The translation, it was translated by Yumiko Yamazaki. But this book came out in 1950 and was also then published, I believe, in paperback in Japan in 1972. Like I said, there were several movies, including a very cool and interesting one done in the mid-70s that I've seen on Japanese TV occasionally. I'll just read you a little snippet of the back here to let you know kind of the sense of it. But it's a very dark, kind of creepy. A lot of his mysteries have impossible crime elements and weird murders and strange things going on and twisted backstories and a very clever mystery plots. In 1940s Japan, so we're right after the post-war. It doesn't say the exact date, but the book came out in 1950, and we're right at the end of the war, so I'd say 46 or so. In the 1940s Japan, the wealthy head of the Inugami clan dies, and his family eagerly await the reading of the will. But no sooner are its strange details revealed than a series of bizarre, gruesome murders begin. Detective Kindaichi must unravel the clan's terrible secrets of forbidden liaisons, monstrous cruelty, and hidden identities to find the murderer and lift the curse wreaking its bloody revenge on the Inugamis. The Inugami Curse is a fiendish, intricately plotted classic mystery from a giant of Japanese crime writing, starring the legendary detective Kosuke Kindaichi. Golden Age crime at its best. Now, technically, fans of the Golden Age maybe put the cutoff in the late 40s, so I guess this barely makes it in, but it definitely feels Golden Age for sure, even if this came out in 1950. Readers will delight in the blind turns, red herrings, and dubious alibis. Anyway, this was a cracking read, very good read, really weird murders and cool kind of main detective and lots of fun. I really, even though it's quite dark and like I said, you know, in some elements quite tragic, but as a good mystery thriller read, and apparently some of these are more thriller, some of these are a little more adventure. Most of them are all kind of twisty mystery plots. I'm looking forward to getting the others. The titles are really evocative too. We have, you know, the Hunjin murders, the Village of 8 Graves, Death on Gokumon Island, and the Devil's Flute murders, etc. So really cool English translated titles. He has a bunch of, you know, weird, dark, kind of horrific or horror adjacent elements into these stories, which should make them appeal to a lot of modern readers, I think. So that's it for my little mini book haul. Hope you enjoyed seeing some of those and listening to me wax at length. Anyway, thank you as always so much for watching. I'll see you in another video real soon. Take care and happy reading.